very smart people. Between 64 and 67, three major things had changed in American politics. First, the Vietnam protest movement. You had college students all over the country who were subject to the draft saying, this war is unjust, it's no good, we shouldn't be there, bring the troops home, right? There are a lot of people who were working people who had been in the military, and they resented this because they saw it as being anti-military, and in many cases it was anti-military. And so Nixon ran against anti-communism, branding them all as communists. Secondly, the women's movement started in '63. By '67, you got radical feminism, and a lot of working men were strict fathers at home. And so Nixon ran on traditional family values. Third, the civil rights legislation happened in '65, right? There were many working men in the South who were racist, some in the North as well, and many working men in the North were afraid that African Americans would take their jobs. So Nixon ran on law and order and against school busing. And that was half of the creation of conservative populism. The other half was equally important. They realized they had to diss liberals because people liked liberals. They invented an idea, the liberal elite, you. That is the latte liberals, the limousine liberals, the Northeast, the liberals who are educated and look down on ordinary working people and make fun of them. The liberals who go backpacking with their backpacks and their Birkenstocks, et cetera, and so on, who eat sushi, God forbid. And the thing is that that has stuck. And the Democrats did nothing about all of this. It's been going on since 1967, and the result right now is the Tea Party. Okay? Conservative populism, and our Democrats in the government, most of them do not understand conservative populism. They still think that if they just tell people that this will, bring down gas prices or cut their taxes or give them better jobs or something, or give them better health care, we can do this for you, then they'll vote for them. Not necessarily true. Okay. Now, why have the Democrats been this way when the Republicans have not? And there's a very simple answer. They went to college and had different majors. If you are a conservative and you go to college, what are you going to major in? And in the curriculum is marketing. And what do marketing professors study? My field, cognitive science. They study framing, metaphors, imagery, emotions, narratives, and language. And that's what they teach. Marketing is second nature to the people who are Republican strategists. And they've been marketing their ideas very effectively for over 40 years. Okay? Now, if you're a Democrat and you go to college, you want to go into politics, what do you study? Yeah, all sorts of things. All right, you study English with critical thinking, you study political science, economics, public policy, law, right? Okay? Not marketing, not cognitive science. You study fields that teach a certain view of reason. And that view of reason, called critical thinking, is what's also called Enlightenment reason. And it's also called the rational actor model. the rational actor model. They teach classical rationality. Well, let me explain what that is. The rational actor model, well, we'll get to that in a minute. The Enlightenment reason comes from the Enlightenment, 1650. Descartes. Descartes figured it out. He was a philosopher and mathematician, very smart guy. And he said, I think, therefore I am. Therefore, he says, all thought is conscious. Right? Normal? What percent do you think is not conscious? 98%. Why? Tell you something about brains. In your brain, you have circuits that are parallel. They go all over your brain. They go from here, from where the language is, to all sorts of your brain. They spread out, thousands of circuits, all at once. Okay? Consciousness is linear. Right? There is no way that you could follow what hundreds and thousands of circuits are doing as you're doing it linear when you're thinking linearly. 98% unconscious. Also because of time. Okay? What is the window of consciousness? Ask any movie director. Right? How many frames per second does a movie have? 25. That means there are 40 thousandth of a second, 40 milliseconds, right, for each frame. If you go, slower than that, fewer frames, you start skipping. So to see something continuous, it has to be 40 milliseconds or less. How long does it take a neuron to fire? Answer, 1 millisecond, 1,000th of a second. You get lots of firing in lots of directions in 40 milliseconds. Okay? Okay. So, good. So the point here is that you could not possibly be conscious of most of what you know. Not possible. Most of what you're thinking is unconscious. Descartes says you can think directly about the world. Turns out you have to think through your body. Now, Descartes tried to explain, he also assumed that thought was disembodied and abstract, because he said if it were embodied, you wouldn't have free will because physical law would intervene. Guess what? Physical law does intervene and you don't have free will. Because you can't have free will and do just anything if you can't think it, if it's not part of your neural circuitry. Okay? So, not there. Next, so you can only think about things that way, and you can only understand things through your body, through your perception and motor system, and through ways in which you connect with other people. There's a physical way to do that, and I won't get into it now. Now, the other part of this is emotion. Descartes says emotion gets in the way of reason. So, suppose you have a stroke or brain injury, so you can't feel emotion. Do you become super rational like Mr. Spock on Star Trek? The answer is no. There's a book called Descartes' Error, written by Antonio Damasio, one of our greatest neuroscientists, who points out that if you don't have emotion, you don't know like versus non-like. You don't, therefore, you can't set a goal. And you can't be rational if you have no goals, and if you don't know if your actions will be liked or not liked, right? So it turns out you wind up doing random things. Rationality requires emotion. You can't have rationality without emotion. And we've been studying exactly how that works. There's a lot of work on it now. We don't fully understand it, but there's a lot going on the relationship between rationality and emotion. Okay? Now, language. If you can reason directly about the world, and if words pick out concepts that go to the world, then words should just fit the world and they should be neutral. No. Words are defined with respect to frames. The frames are neural circuitry in your brain. In politics, those are dependent on the moral frames. In politics, no language is neutral. That's why you have to watch how that works. Okay, so how do you put all this together? Well, you have to start by looking at what is not said. And that's important. So we started at 2:30. We have about an hour and a quarter. But let's take a few minutes to go through this. For example, we started at 2:30. You told me an hour and a quarter.
At 3:30, the next session starts at 3:30.
Oh, well, we started an hour. We did policy for half an hour.
Yeah, so 40 minutes.
Oh.
40 minutes.
Oh, you told me an hour and a quarter. I'm sorry.
You know, Henrietta, we could talk faster in the policy meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
all right.
Let's in any case.
Let's go.
Chance for
Let's try to go
question and
through.
answer.
Yeah. So let's. Yeah, I want to have you ask questions, but I want to just finish up what this means for particular cases. One thing it means is there are general principles governing all your issues. Let's take an example. Freedom. Conservatives and progressives have opposite views of freedom. There's some cases that are the same. If you're walking down the street and somebody ties you up and jumps you, you're not free. We agree. Okay? There are certain places where they lock you up for talking that you're not free. But there are other things. If you look at George Bush's second inaugural address, where he used the words freedom, free, and liberty 49 times in 20 minutes, there's a totally different view of freedom on the left and on the right. The right always uses freedom, and they use it in conservative ways. I have a book called Whose Freedom that goes through it in every area: religious freedom, international relations, government, etc. Progressives have an idea of freedom that's crucial, and they don't talk about it. Go back to the idea of democracy. People care about each other and give rise to, through their government, they provide what? They provide public resources for all that give you freedom. How? Healthcare. If you have cancer and you don't have healthcare, you're not free. You break your leg and can't get it fixed, you're not free, right? You get a serious illness and you can't be cured, you're not free. Education. You don't have access to education, you're not free. You don't have the skills you need, you don't know the possibilities in your life, you don't have free access to your society. You're not free. Every issue that you talk about, whether it's pre-K or voting rights, if you can't vote, you're not free. One thing after another, we have to be talking about freedom, because all of our issues have to do with freedom. Secondly, there's the environment, and I want to talk about global warming because there was a thing in the Senate last night. I spent 3 hours over there at the Senate. I liked everything that was said, but not what was not said. What was not said by any of the senators that at least I heard was that this is an issue that has to do with our existence. It's an existential issue. It's an issue that says, is the world as we know it going to exist or not? Because if you go up to 9 more degrees, the world ain't going to be there for business. If the oceans rise 30 feet, lots of stuff is going to be wiped out. If there are droughts and huge storms, many people will lose their homes, their jobs, all sorts of stuff will be wiped out. You take your favorite list of issues and go down and say if global warming isn't dealt with, they're all down. None of them matter, right? So global warming has everything to do with freedom, and freedom for your children, your grandchildren. You have somebody who's 20 who might live to be 90. By the time they're 60 or 70, they ain't going to be free if they don't deal with this. So, this is something that people don't, if you say, well, it doesn't poll very well. It's on the bottom of the polling list. Got to bring it to the top of the polling list. Freedom is an issue in this country. It is one of the issues. It's not on the list at all. Nobody asks about it because they don't see that there are 2 different views of freedom. They know there are 2 different views of global warming. They don't know that 2 opposite views of freedom. And it's time to take freedom back. There are ways of talking about this, and let me give you a couple more. You have to deal with pensions. What is a pension? A pension is delayed payment for work already done. If somebody cuts pensions like you have in Wisconsin, they're stealing salary. They're taking money, delayed pay for work already done. The word benefits is not the right word because it's not a gift. Somebody says, we can't really afford these benefits, these gifts. We can't give you as much. I'm not giving you, that's part of your salary. You know, it means we're cutting your pay. Say it. Say it out loud. People don't say these things. You know it, but you don't say it. All right? For example, the right wing talks about job creators. What are working people? They're profit creators. Working people create profits for the people they're working for the businesses. If that business has higher productivity because of the workers should get a share of that. That's what all fair pay arguments are about. They're not just about, well, how could you live, or victimization. They're about fairness in productivity and about the fact that workers produce profits, whether they're working in McDonald's or whether they're, driving a truck or whether they're, running a crane, whatever they're doing, or teaching. They're creating profit. And teachers create profit for the whole society because education creates profit for everybody. I mean, this is something that people don't say and need to say, and that you know instinctively. I can tell it to you, and I see, look around the room, there's nodding, right? You know it, you got to say it. And there are a lot of things like that in case after case. We can go through that more if you like, and I want to take questions.